Good morning, all. This is Gaurav Bansod. I'm a technical program manager at miniOrange, and welcome all of you for this webinar on 5 key benefits of modern identity solutions for Indian business, powered by miniOrange. So, what basically you will have an insight from it is how you can protect your entire infrastructure with a cost-effective solution. What are the basically key benefits of using identity and access management and PAM solution for your business? What are the different pain points which are faced by the industries, whether it's IT organization, HR teams, e-commerce, or the employees who are using, the different infrastructure for the remote work, educational institute, and definitely the finance and bank. So we'll go through the different pain points which the current organization, any organization is going through, and how the modern identity solutions are basically addressing those. So in a nutshell, it will be a good learning experience for all the registrants to learn about the modern techniques through which one can protect their entire infrastructure. So the pain point which today we are talking, and before moving on towards the main agenda, I would like to thank all our partners, distributor across Indian startup ecosystems or the cybersecurity scenario, specifically the Cyber Disti, which is our distributor, Auxiliary Digitech, Computer Port, Domain Info Solutions, Microscan, Logon, Novigo Solutions, ByteView, NetLogic, Orient Technologies, Muse Technologies, BirlaSoft, RAS, and Advasian. So we have very strong channel partner ecosystem in India, as we are Make in India company, a cybersecurity company. All these partners, distributor has assisted our 10,000 plus customers for the deployment for any kind of support. Okay. So starting with the webinar, why basically any organization, whether it's small, medium, large, or enterprise, has to check for the security postures. The first point that we have absorbed over the period of time, that there is a huge risk involved if your identities are not managed, and you have different identities spread across different databases, whether it's Active Directory or any of the HRMS or CRMS system. There are multiple roles of an individual which are placed there, and it's very difficult to manage those identities. So that is the first threat for your critical infrastructure. Second point, which is very important, do you have proper authentication in place, authentication and authorizations? Do you have the privilege accounts, which are basically managing your digital security and how they have given the access? The fourth point, which is very important, which is basically in an organization, how you are giving an access to the application. And the last point which you learn from this webinar is, what is your plan to safeguard your entity? Or if you are already having some solution in place, are those solutions sufficient enough to safeguard your entity? Or are they posing some loopholes? Are they posing some security threats to safeguard your entities? So this is what we all cover in the today's webinar. We have Q&A section, we have chat where you can ask your questions. We have our technical team from miniOrange who can able to answer those questions. We'll be having a pause in between. We'll try to make as interactive as it's possible. So I request all of you, all the registers, that please put your questions, any questions if you have related to the solutions, related to the offerings, what we are talking about, in the chat window, and we could able to answer those. So basically, everyone knows that there is no hidden point nowadays where we talk about how many losses across the globe is happening because of the cyber incidents. And You know that when recently, a very large organization faced an issue of, cutting down their supplies, cutting down their important vital resources because of a small bug. And definitely there are regular regulatory penalties when we talk about, the compliance point of view. So definitely when it comes to cyber security, generally the small organizations avoid that for a year or two, but eventually they find that it's important to place those, at least those security measures in place that they can safeguard their entity. So if you stick for 35 to 40 minutes, what you will learn out of this webinar is basically the pain point which I think everyone is facing, that how you can grant the access to everyone and basically monitor those, how you can have a tailored permission, how you ensure that only authorized user can access the company's critical infrastructure and the information. The second point, which is very important that we'll cover toward the webinar, is there are so many solutions in the market. Which solution do you exactly need? And what is the ROI? Do you need to spend 70 lakhs in a year for safeguarding your entity? Or do you need to spend only 25 lakhs in a year for safeguarding their entity? There are many organizations who are giving you a turnkey project, which we call zero trust, and they are saying that you need to deploy all these tools in place. And surprisingly, there is always an overhead. You don't, because every organization is different. And according to the organizations, there is tailored solution what is needed. So are those large organizations offering you tailored solution, or they are just giving you, the entire infrastructure, the entire tool set, which you are buying at, at the elephant cost, and you are also not sure whether that is solving exactly the pain point or not. So all these important points, which I feel is the need of the hour, is basically will be addressed in next 30 to 35 minutes. And we as a miniOrange, we have around 600 odd employees. We work across 5 time zones. We travel across the globe for the conferences, for the client meetings, for any road shows. And this is the major problem we are seeing across the globe, where we talk about customization, where we talk about tailored security solution, to address the customer's pain point. As mentioned, we are a cybersecurity company. We are into this business from last 13 odd years, 25,000 plus customers globally, which is a great fit for any company like us, which is born in India. We have headquartered in India, Pune. As mentioned, we work across 5 time zones: Southeast Asia, South America, North America, Australia, and definitely the Indian subcontinent region. We are into every odd countries. We have a catalog of around 6,000 applications where you can simply do the single sign-on as well as multi-factor authentication in few clicks. So this is basically our portfolio, the miniOrange portfolio. We have consumer identity and access management, which includes single sign-on, multi-factor authentication. We have PAM, we have CASB, and we also have governing access, which we are building it. We also have DLP and MDM solutions, which we are building. We do the on-premise as well as cloud deployment. And also we are into all these marketplaces like Atlassian, Drupal, Shopify, Magento, Oracle, Google Workspace, or even at AWS Marketplace. We are one amongst the top plugin vendor on Atlassian and WordPress Marketplace. If you want to secure your WordPress website, or if you have Jira, Bitbucket, and Confluence, and if you want to secure that, we do have solutions for the same. So let me talk about the identity and access management, why it is so important, whether you are having a user store in Active Directory, Oracle databases, or anywhere else. miniOrange is having a capability to sync with your existing infrastructure, whatever you have, and based on the applications your entity is having, based on the protocol supported by those applications, we can easily sip into and do the single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. So that's what I was mentioning in the starting, that managing identity is very critical. So we can act as a broker. We can add an extra layer of security or existing infrastructure. We generally don't go and tell to the customer that replace your existing infrastructure with the offerings what we are having. We actually go, a lot of time of miniOrange employees, engineers goes on, evaluating the customer infrastructure, the existing tools, and then suggesting that which is the right pain point for what is the right pain point and how miniOrange can solve that part. So we also have PAM in place, privilege access management, which is nowadays compliance or regulatory compliance needed for most of the sectors, whether it is banking, whether it is SMB segment, which talks about any production units. So PAM is also one of the key factors. So in this webinar, we'll try to highlight uh, what an extra layer of security you will get when you combine identity and access management and the PAM. We also have consumer identity and access management, CIAM, or customer identity and access management. You'd have seen that um, the websites which are customer facing, like Amazon or any of the Yahoo, where millions of customers are logging into it, and they are logging by using single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. We do have a solutions around consumer identity and access management, which talks about a lot of tracking, which talks about what kind of traffic you are getting, whether they are from automobile. So tomorrow, if Amazon put CIAM into the place, they might ask their consumer to log in into their Amazon portal with the MFA. And then the company like us can provide Amazon the analytics, saying that you are getting most of the customer from this region or from this vertical. So we do have this kind of solution also in place. So when we talk about, so let's go vertical wise. So when we talk about the IT organization, what is the biggest threat? So this is the data which we have compiled while dealing with 25,000 users. So we have customers from IT, pharma, fintech. We have customers from the entertainment world, and so forth and so on. So that's why the entire webinar is divided into the sector wise. So when we talk about the IT organizations, you see that, or you will agree with this point, that there are always, whether it's HR, admin, or manager, they always struggle to keep track of the users who are accessing the applications, whether they are the authorized user or they are, unauthorized users. Because in any organizations, there are employees, there are contract players, there are vendors who always interact with your company's critical infrastructure. And if you are having this kind of environment where there are multiple people, multiple verticals accessing the company's sensitive data, the data breaches is one of the vital outcome that you can see. Because until and unless you don't manage your identities, until and unless you don't have an authentication authorization in the place, this is bound to happen. Uh, you would have seen various articles in the newspaper where the disgruntled employee has leaked the information, and this is all happens because right controls are not in place. And the second point which we have observed, which is basically a user management, we do not have a process of automating the entire user lifecycle management, where when any new employee joins the company, their entire flow, where the identity gets stored, what kind of controls can be passed on to that employee, what applications can be accessed, all this entire provisioning, what we call, should be automated. And as nowadays 70% of the organizations are doing this process manually, it will unnecessarily open the loopholes or doors or a port where we can introduce the security gap and can exploit the system. And the third point, always say that the threat, 90% of the time the threat is insider. So there are 7 to 8 admins who are managing your critical infrastructure. And this admins knows in and out of a company, or they knows every critical infrastructure servers. And then how you ensure that these 8 to 10 admins are not the single point of failure. How you ensure that you stop the lateral movement the moment the system shows you the red flag. So without proper control of these privilege accounts, it's difficult to protect any organization infrastructure or security element. So this is the biggest threat what we have observed over the past 10 12 odd years in the IT organization. And how we solve that? The first basic step what we can do is, if your organization is having 7 to 8 entities, 7 to 8 applications, and those applications are accessed by the employees by every time by different user ID and password, that is the first loophole, right? So what you can do is, all these 8 applications can be enabled through protocols or can be enabled through single sign-on. So any authorized, when I'm saying any authorized entity or any authorized person should able to log in into 8 application with simply clicking once. They don't have to enter 8 times different user ID and password. And this is possible when you are having a proper authorization flow in place. Now, there are many questions from the customers. Generally, they ask why we need single sign-on. How it's a usability. It's not a security risk. It's a security risk because 95% of our customers or 95% of employees put the same password every time. So anyone can brute force and can get the access to specific applications. And on top of it, from last 3 4 years, post COVID era, the people started believing in passwordless measures where you should have a passwordless authentication, where you don't have to remember, you don't have to enter the password. And because the password remains the key element of entering into the someone's infrastructure, impersonate and do the stuff. So there is a lot of buzz around passwordless authentication. Sorry, miniOrange is having a capability to do the passwordless authentication as well. So it's as simple as that. You are having 20, 30, 70, 100, 200 application, whether they support protocol, standard protocol like SAML, OAuth, OIDC, WSP, JWT. miniOrange is having a solution where you can have a single sign-on into a specific application or set of applications. Now the problem comes with the SMBs or medium scale or even with the enterprises. They are having a lot of applications which don't support the standard protocol like SAML and OAuth or JWT. You are having an application which is built by the third party. You are having an application which is built by your engineering team, and that is not compatible with SSO and MFA. Then how you will do? So miniOrange is having and connectors for those applications. So the moment we know the technology stack of that specific application, let's say if your engineering team is built the application on top of Java, we can give them a Java based connector or an API which basically does single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. If it is built on top of PHP, .NET, we will have a set of connectors which will basically make that application compatible with us on MFA. Then there comes third applications, which is basically legacy applications like SAP and Oracle, which are header-based authentication. And most of the medium to large scale enterprise are having these applications. They are into this system from last 30, 40 odd years. Then how you will do SSO and MFA on top of those legacy applications which are not compatible with the standards of SSO and MFA or SAML or JWT, because they are header-based authentication. They use proxy solutions, and miniOrange is having ability to do the single sign-on and multi-factor authentication on legacy applications like SAP and Oracle. In a nutshell, what I'm trying to say that be it any application, web-based application, the first step what you should do to protect the organization critical infrastructure is all employees, consumers should have single sign-on and multi-factor authentication across the verticals. And that if the first step is achieved, I think uh, the most 70 to 80% of the infrastructure can be protected. And nowadays, as I mentioned, there is a concept of passwordless authentication. People want to eliminate the password. So miniOrange supports that. Just choose the application. After applications, automatically the moment you put the username based on the second factor, whether it is Google, Microsoft, OTP or SMS, email, hardware token, biometrics, any second factor, it gets triggered and you don't have to enter the password and the right people get access to the right application. Okay, so passwordless is also one of the key element in securing the organization ability of critical environment. And during COVID, I think 100% of our workforce was remote. Slowly nowadays there is a mix of hybrid environment where we have a remote work as well as non-remote work. And how to protect the remote users, how to protect from the remote users to have a right access to the organization critical infrastructure. So nowadays, everyone who is working remote can be connected to the VPN. VPN connection, as you know, if you just type VPN vulnerabilities on Google, you will find 10,000 links talking about how to exploit the VPN connection. You will find research articles on different attacks which are happening on VPNs, and no vendor is untouchable. Any vendor gets compromised when it comes to the VPN. So how to safeguard it? So what is the first thing you can do is basically you can have a multi-factor authentication on top of it. As mentioned, we can have password which can be secured. We can have password stored in a proper way, so that the passwords are also secured when we're talking about the remote work. So we'll talk about this in just 2 minutes. So there is poll which will be live in a minute's time. I request all the participants to engage with the poll, and we'll just be back in another 30 seconds. I hope the poll is visible, and if you have any questions till this time, please post the questions in Q&A, and I think our team can definitely assist in answering those questions. Towards the end of the webinar, if there are some questions, we can take the questions. We can ask the participants to raise the hand, and they can interact with our technical team, and we can address if you're having any queries. Okay, moving on. As I was mentioning, we are talking about multi-factor authentication. We are one of the potential vendor in the market who is having capability to deploy an extra layer of MFA over entire infrastructure. And multi-factor authentication is the least thing any organization can do, to protect the resources. If you see a lot of Instagram, YouTube, Facebook's accounts are being hacked, the simple reason is none of us is using the second factor authentication on top of it. If you see the Instagram, they always mention that login with 2FA. If you see the Facebook, they ask with login with 2FA, but we generally say that remind me later. That is one of the easiest method to secure your infrastructure, and that we all should, whether it's VPN, network devices, routers, switches, firewalls, Windows workstation, Linux workstation, Mac devices. miniOrange is the one of the potential vendor in the market who can add an extra layer of infrastructure over the entire infrastructure. Generally, you require a combination of 2 to 3 vendors to protect all the entire infrastructure with MFA. miniOrange can do that. We support all kinds of second factor method. We support 15 plus different MFA method. Whether it's OTP or SMS, email, Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. miniOrange is having its own authenticator app published in Android and iOS, used by thousands of organizations across the globe. We do support the latest technologies like FIDO authentication, which is WebAuthn, which is biometric, face, fingerprint, YubiKey, hardware token, so forth and so on. So I think if if I deal with the organization, the first consult what or the first suggestion what we do with the or what we tell to the organization is have a MFA on your workstations. So if company has given me a laptop, then the first thing what I should do is I should have MFA on top of it, because who is accessing it? entire information is inside it. When I'm connected to the VPN, put the MFA. When I'm connecting to the Wi-Fi, whether they support E protocol or any other protocol, put their multi-factor authentication. If you are using applications, put their multi-factor authentication, and it's all can be done very easily, within a short period of time. So multi-factor authentication is the compliance for the banking organizations, compliance for any fintech, manufacturing industry, that you should have MFA. So MFA is nowadays become commodity instead of a product. So do reach out to us if you want to protect your organization's infrastructure with the MFA part. Then comes the large organization. And when we talk about the large organization, they are having, apart from this pain point, which I talk about the IT industries, they are having a different set of pain points. Like the employer don't want employee to log in, or employer want employee not to restrict them with the basic user ID and password. They want to restrict with the different set of measures, because there are thousands of employees who are working remotely, and they are working from different location. They are working from different IP addresses. So how you ensure that the right set of people are having access to the right resources when they are working remotely? So this constrained environment can be created with the help of tools like adaptive authentication or risk-based authentication. As mentioned, there are location-based security challenges. If any organization is wanted to, or if they allow user to use specific servers or their resources only in the stipulated time, then how you restrict that? So all these point out to a tool called as adaptive authentication, or also called as risk-based authentication, where the employer can restrict the employees not only based on the user credential, but also with time, IP, location, and device. So we can do the restriction of time. So only from, let's say, 9 to 6 only the employee can able to access a specific application or resources. We can restrict from specific IP. We can restrict from specific location. We can restrict even from specific device. So we can bind the user to specific device. We can even bind the user to specific application and to specific device. So to give you an example, a lot of times the organization comes to us saying that I don't want my employee to open the personal Gmail instances in their official environment, because there had been so many cases where the employee has opened their personal Gmail, attached the company's sensitive information, and sent it to the competitor, or to or used it otherwise. So we can bind the user to specific device. So if the company like miniOrange has given me this laptop, I will ensure that the specific application gets opened from specific this laptop, and it gets opened only from the user like me. I will not have access to the mobile phone, even if I try to open that application from mobile phone. Or if you want your user to open the application from multiple devices, you can set so we do a lot of customization in this space, and this is nowadays a mandatory. Every request we get with the adaptive authentication. Do you have IP restrictions issue? Do you have a feature like device restriction? And this is increasing. So from last 6 odd months, we are getting every request with the device based restriction. They want their employee to open specific set of application from specific device, and they don't want their employee to open that specific application from multiple devices. So that also we can. And then comes the most interesting part, which talks about onboarding of an employee. When the employee joins the organization, how the entire flow has been created, because the crux of cybersecurity ecosystem getting so many attacks lies in how you onboard the employee, how you give access of your critical infrastructure to that particular employee, how you manage that employee, how you manage their access, how you deprovision it, how you provision it. So all this lead to a big loophole which generally we talk about, and there is a lot of threats around that. And this can be easily overcome with the solutions like user provisioning or user lifecycle management, which is a subset of governing access, where you do the complete automation. So whenever any new employee joins the company, his or her profile gets created in the HRMS or CRMS system. And then, so let's say this is the employee who joins the company, and then his profile gets created in the HRMS or CRMS system. And also his or her profile get created in the Active Directory. And then comes the manager, whose job is basically to give an access to specific employee to certain set of application which is authorized to or which is entitled to. This might take 7 days of time, this might take 10 days of time based on this manager's availability. But the real problem start is over the period of time, this employee uh, is having multiple accounts with the multiple databases the organization is having. They are having different attributes or different username and password and different entities. And this databases are connected to the organization critical infrastructure, which this manager is not aware about it. And one fine day, the employee has decided to leave the organization, and what his manager does is, his or her manager does is, it removes the access of this HRMS CRMS systems or Active Directory, because that is the only two things this manager is aware about. What about the different databases where is his or her entry is created? So even though the employee left the organization, his or her entry attributes are still existing in the multiple databases which are connected to organization critical infrastructure. So though even he left the organization, still he is having an access to the organization critical applications, infrastructure, and resource. And this is being the problem in 50% of the organizations who are dealing with the influx of new employee joining the organizations, or who are still doing the manual work. And this is completely possible with the concept like miniOrange, which we call the user lifecycle management, where we act as a firewall, where miniOrange broker is having a capability to sync with any of the HRMS CRMS systems, or even with the Active Directory. And it can do the automation of entire user lifecycle management. You can define the rule in the miniOrange, and then based on the role, the particular employee gets an access to certain set of applications within a single click. Similarly, it can be deprovisioned also within a single click. So basically, miniOrange act as a firewall, whether that employee is having multiple identities in multiple databases, irrespective of that, miniOrange take care of the entire automation of user lifecycle management. So this is also one of the interesting stuff which many of the organization is adopting. And then comes the crux of where we talk about the finance, where we talk about the banking organizations. I don't have to tell, lot of regulatory compliance has been advised, suggested, forced on the finance and banking firms, which talks about managing identities, which talk about multi-factor authentication, which talks about a user lifecycle management, which talks about governing access, and definitely they talk about MFA all the time. So banking organizations are the most critical organizations in our country, and a lot of compliances talk about all these issues associated with the identities. And we as a miniOrange takes pride in serving more than hundreds of fintech and banking organization to protect their critical infrastructure. We'll be shortly back where we talk about how we do that. We'll talk about the PAM, privileged access management. You are having a poll on your screen. Just indulge with that for next 30 seconds, and we'll talk about the PAM in next 30 seconds and how we can address the pain points by the banking organizations or by fintech or with respect to the compliance. Thank you. Again, if you have any questions, please post those questions in the Q&A section. I think our team can able to address those. And if you wanted to talk to our team towards the end of the webinar, might be next 10-15 minutes, you can just raise the hand, and we can talk about your pain point. We can talk about general about the questions you have in mind. So what are the issues in managing the privilege access? There are a lot of admins, and there are a lot of admins who are doing RDP and SSH into the session, into your servers. And No one knows how many people are RDPing into my server or how many people are SSHing into my server. That's become a critical roadblock, a pain point for addressing those. I don't know my admin is having an access to the entire AWS infrastructure and what exactly he or she is doing when he gets the access to specific critical infrastructure. So how we can monitor that? And as rightly mentioned, 90% of the time threats are from inside. How you ensure that you stop the lateral movement the moment someone issues the red flag? How you do the auditing? How you do the monitorings? And all these questions are solved by the tool, which is very well known in the fintech space, which is a PAM, Privileged Access Management. I will not talk much about the PAM because I guess everyone is aware about. We do a lot of compliance. We get a lot of compliance requirement when it comes to the PAM, and how our PAM is different than the other PAM which are existing in the market is definitely uh, we tailor our PAM solution according to the client infrastructure, which is missing in any of the big players or larger or the player who's only handling enterprise customer. So we do a lot of customization with respect to our PAM solution. We don't enforce 50 odd feature for small SMB banks or for small SMBs, to use those 50 odd features, and we charge for that. So we are having pay as you go model. We have all kind of features available: password vaulting, audit trails, privilege session management and recording, who is RDPing into your infrastructure, SSH into your, you define the assets, and we monitor with respect to the compliance, so forth and so on. So pay as you go model, customization, and we are agentless. We don't deploy any agent or the client infrastructure. We do, agentless. We act as a jump server. And the most important point, which I have mentioned in the starting of the webinar, is customization. Is your solution is customizable? Is your solution is adding an value to the existing infrastructure instead of suggesting remove the entire infrastructure and replace with that? So our entire module, our all modules developed by the engineering team are customizable. Uh, we sit on the client existing infrastructure and upgrade the infrastructure instead of suggesting a new infrastructure to them. That's the USP of miniOrange. Every solutions we present in the market. So if you see the dashboards, if you would have come across the dashboards of PAM, they are highly complicated. You require the OEM, the people, the engineers to deploy the PAM in the place. If you see the miniOrange dashboard of PAM, it's so much sorted. You even if your admin is capable of adding the RDP and SSL servers, databases, he or she can do the configuration by themselves. They don't need the miniOrange engineer to come on a call and do the setup. It's so seamless. And why we can able to provide the seamless solution? Because we generally get the requirement, we generally get the, what you can say, the pain points, solutions from the customer itself. So customer tells us, yeah, this is the problem I'm facing with the current vendor, and this is not solved. This is the biggest pain point, and our engineering team day in and day out put the efforts and make it so much easy and seamless to ensure that we address the pain point. So if you see our PAM dashboard, if you see get a free trial version, you will identify it's so much easy to use as compared to any other existing vendor on the ecosystem. So in a nutshell, what I want to propose for you, that you should have the first target, that you should manage your identities. If you are not, you should have a centralized identity in the place. You should definitely have the products like single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, adaptive authentication, user lifecycle management, PAM, CIAM, CASB in place. We do have a CASB solution as well, cloud access security broker. Like if your employees are using Google Drive, or if they are using any of the Microsoft environment or Atlassian, and if you want your employee to put the restrictions that I don't want my employee, I want my employee to use the Google Drive, but I don't want my employee to download something from the Google Drive. So this is fine-grained access control over the cloud application can be easily achieved through proxy, which we call a CASB solution. So we do have a CASB solution in the place, and definitely there is short a message on my screen which talks about a discount coupon that you can just use this coupon where whenever you reach out to us, you mention that you attended this webinar, take a screenshot of this coupon and present it to us, and definitely what are the solutions, um, what are the pain points you have, and our solutions fit in, would be happy to offer you the relatable discount. So I think towards the end of the webinar, this screenshot will be placed in the chat section where you can use it whenever you reach out to us, so that we understand, we know that you attended the webinar and you are looking for some kind of solutions, and that is definitely will be eligible for discounts. So before moving on towards the last section, which is very much interesting, because we'll talk about lot of elements that miniOrange is investing into. Um, but before that, 30 seconds of break where there is a poll on your screen. Please address those. It would be easy for us to map your requirement to also gauge that whether you are in line with our thoughts or not. Thank you. We'll be back in next 20 seconds and we'll talk about a miniOrange USPs, innovations, and how we have scaled from 1,000 users to 25,000 users globally, and how the miniOrange journey or miniOrange product can solve the pain point which are currently existing in your infrastructure. So we do a lot of consultancy and advocacy work. We generally don't sell the solution. We generally go and advocate our customer that this is the right thing that you should do, whether you purchase it from miniOrange or from someone else. But this is what you should have the things in place. Okay. So what basically are miniOrange USP? We do the cloud deployment. We have our SaaS model. We have on-premise, and our on-premise is basically purely an on-premise solution. It sits in your server. There is no port open to the internet. It's purely an on-premise solution. So even if I want to update the license, I need to come on a call, or our engineer will come on a call, request and access to specific on-premise solution, and then only we can update the license. So that purely on-prem solutions we are at. Big enterprise, big players, those who are only offering cloud, and when their customer needs on-premise solution, they are having a tie-up with us where we can provide the on-premise solution to them. And we do have option of private cloud. If you're having already a cloud present, we can deploy our IDP module there, and we can have the secure environment. As mentioned, over the period of time, over the last 12, 13 odd years, we are having a heavy catalog of around 6,000 plus applications, where you can simply click the applications, put next, put some attributes, and you can easily do the SSO and MFA. No user migration required, whether you are in Active Directory, Oracle databases, different databases, CMS, LMS. We can sync. We can do the integration with those databases. You don't have to basically put the extra effort of migrating thousands of users from one element to other element. And the reason is, we have a customer who is using 8 to 9 million user licenses from us per month. They have not done the migration. What we have done is we have adjusted our infrastructure with their requirement. And definitely on top of it, whether it's US, whether it's South America, whether it's Southeast Asia, everyone is talking about the cost-effective solution. And miniOrange is the player in the market who can give you the right price point. And because of that, cybersecurity international rating agencies like Gartner, G2 Capter has given us the best ROI vendor from last 4 odd years. As mentioned, we are in India. We are in Pune, Baner office, 600 odd engineers, 4 offices, working 24/7. We work across 5 time zones. And I think it's an advantage to the Indian audiences. It's an advantage to the Indian organizations, because we do travel to the places, our partner do travel to the places and do the deployment. We have the partner distributors in every small cities, even in the in the small what you can say a small ecosystem where there is a very less cyber security system, we do have support for that. And we generally give the free trial versions to the people who can access the company, who can evaluate our tool, who can deploy the tool, who can test it. And generally we say 30-day free trial, but generally our customers get convinced easily after using the tool for 10-15 odd days. And you can use our tool to see that whether really our tool or what I have you know talked about is really walking the talk or not. So that's our basically USP. And that has been the miniOrange is known for. We are bootstrap company. Why it's relevant to tell you guys, because we are not dependent on the investors' money. Whatever the money we earn from a market, we again invest back into our R&D to make our product looks good, to make our product works better, and that's our strong foundation is. So, for example, if you're talking to me or an engineer for the deployment, might be after 4-5 odd years, you will talk to the same person, because we will never run out of the fuel, and we will not take any drastic you know uh, decisions in place according to the market need. Which what generally we do is we only listen to the customer, we only talk to customer, we address the pain point, and our customer basically tells that this is the roadmap you should have. And that's how we have built the entire pipeline. We started with SSO, MFA, Adaptive Authentication, PAM, CASB. We are now working with the governing, DLP, MDM. These are all the requirements, the use cases, the strong use cases comes from the customers, our existing customers. And we have very strong customer retention program. One customer gives the reference of 5 more customers, and that is only possible when the customer actually sees the value in your product. And because of this reason, we have so many accolades, so many awards by the genuine cybersecurity international rating agency with G2, Capterra, or Gartner. Gartner has given us the strong performer in their Gartner Peer Insight Voice of the Customer. We are the only Indian company, we are the only bootstrap company in this quadrant who is fighting with the Western world. There is Okta, Oracle, Amazon, Microsoft, One Identity, and Gartner has recognized us as a strong performer. And this has been, a very proud moment for not only for the company like us, for any company which is basically built in India and which has achieved the global footprint across, over the period of last 12 odd years. You can just go to miniorange.com/customers and you name the brand, and that brand has been a part of a miniOrange family. NASA, Intel, Bank of America, Walt Disney, Walmart, IBM, KPMG, Vodafone, Goldman Sachs, Bosch, they are all using, Airbus is using us for their, protecting their identities, securing their infrastructure, managing privileged users. So we have 25,000 plus customers across the globe. We are the emerging leader in IAM space in India. Punjab National Bank, Flipkart, DBS, NHPC, Election Commission of India, L&T, Wipro, Times Group, Hindustan Aeronautical Limited, so forth, and so Obra Group. These are all our few of the premier customers who are using us for, or who are trusting miniOrange to secure their infrastructure. And the most important point, every year we have a very interesting conference which takes place in Pune, where a lot of international guests, national participants who are actually interested in learning about the cybersecurity space, because that cybersecurity conferences are so expensive and they made expensive, so it's not possible for any common layman to go and learn. So which basically we started in last 3 odd years. So Identity Shield Summit, which is happening in 22nd and 23rd February, where you will see a single stop solution. A lot of speakers are coming which talks about the current ecosystem, CISOs, directors, IT heads, admins. There are a lot of certifications we do in this conference. So it will be, you all will be invited. We'll have a separate, what you can say, mailer to you. But I just wanted to present a small stuff about the Identity Shield and Summit. So it's happening on 22nd and 23rd February in Dhruv Global School, Pune, and I think you all will get an invite for the same. So that's about the Identity Shield, what we are talking about. As mentioned, we are the company which is engineered in India. You can visit our office. We have 24/7 support. We have distributors, partners in place across, not only in India, but across the globe. You can go to miniorange.com/customers and find the people out. So thank you all of you for having a patience. For if you have questions, you can reach out to me, to IDP support at securify.com, info at securify.com, to your engaged to get on a call. Uh, this point, this use cases would be to do that. It's pleasure meeting all of you guys.